What's going on, everybody? It's Dr. Homebrew. We are back for another show full of information. And this one is a real doozy. This is one that I've been looking forward to for too long, probably, and to still consider, myself in the, the drinking subculture. I don't know what's going on. We are going to be talking non-alcoholic homebrewing. How to do it at home. I love non-alcoholic beers. I would love to be able... Okay. I love the concept of non-alcoholic beers, and I would love to be able to have them at my house, without having to mail order them. And on today's show, we're going to get help with that from someone called Jamil Zainasheff. Jamil, welcome to Dr. Homebrew, young man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'm glad you were able to come on the show. So you have a couple of the non-alcoholic beers that we're going to be talking about today, but you are the sort of guy to guide us through how to do this at home.
Okay.
A little bit.
Yes.
Yeah. Is that okay? I know I didn't ask you before inviting you on, so I guess now's the time just to make sure you know that information. Is that true?
No, that's absolutely fine.
Okay, great. Perfect. Before we do that, of course, I want to thank our sponsor, 5 Star Chemicals. You can go to 5starchemicals.com immediately, if not sooner, and learn about the best ways to clean and sanitize your home brewing equipment, which is, of course, by using PBW and Star San and all the other products that 5 Star makes. They have gloves you can buy and aprons and all sorts of safety equipment as well, on top of the chemicals that we all know and love. And if your local shop does not carry 5 Star Chemicals, please demand them to. Pull your pants down and waggle your wiener back and forth. And no, don't do that. But ask very nicely, be like, hey, look, I've heard a lot about 5 Star. I haven't tried it yet. You guys don't carry it. I want to support you. Can you please get some in? I'm sure they will do that, and everyone will be happy. Your home brewing equipment will be cleaner and sanitizier, if that's a word. And your beer will be better too. That's how it works. With me, of course, is Brian. And Brian.
Hi, I'm Brian.
Hi, and I'm Brian too.
We had a lot of meeting of the Bryans today, or this week, exchanging beers and stuff for later on this show and the next show. And Alice is like, who's that at the door? I'm like, oh, it's my friend Brian giving me beer. And then the other day, who's that? It's Brian. It doesn't look like Brian. Well, see, Brian's come in many different shapes and sizes.
Yes, some are more handsome and intelligent than others.
Yeah.
I make no comparisons about who is whom, but you got to come to my house, JP, and encounter like all of our 4,000 animals.
That's true. Yeah, my knees got licked. I felt like I was back in high school.
That's just me.
Yeah. Well, right. Yeah. That was pretty nice. Anyway, I'm excited, boys. I'm excited to talk non-alcoholic beer. So, Jamil, what's up with non-alcoholic beers? Have you made a non-alcoholic beer yourself?
I have. And we did some tests with it at Heretic and tried a few different things. It's an interesting concept. For me, I like low alcohol British beers.
Yeah, that's why you and I hug and kiss frequently. Yeah,
but some of the non-alcoholic ones. Once you get to non-alcoholic, it's kind of like, so what exactly is the purpose of this? For
me, it's it's flavor.
Yeah.
I'm trying to back off, as I get older, I'm trying to exercise more and drink less. And that non-alcoholic beer sort of quenches that psychological need for fizzy and malt.
So there's, a few basic ways of making non-alcoholic beer. Mm-hmm. One is they have you're familiar with reverse osmosis, where there's a membrane and you push the water against it and the clean water comes out one side, or the pure water comes out one side, and the concentrated minerals and everything just get washed across the other side. Mm-hmm. Well, you can do the same thing with alcohol. So you take beer and you run it across the membrane under high pressure, and it pushes the alcohol through the membrane, and you get pure alcohol out that side. And then the other beer, the beer without the alcohol, now just gets pushed along the process, and you can separate out the alcohol from the beer. And then
here's a dumb question: is it the same membrane, like reverse osmosis, like a water system?
no,
Okay.
it's the specialized membrane.
Oh,
Yeah, it'll separate it out.
nice.
And so you can take the beer that comes out, and you can add water back into it. And there's machines that'll do it all in one continuous stream. And you can reconstitute it back to whatever water value you want, and then you can take the alcohol and you can use that for making a seltzer or something like that. So that's what one of the popular things are. A machine that we were looking at Heretic was something I think around like 90 to 100 grand for a fairly basic one.
Wow, that's a lot of money.
Right.
This is not something the home brewers are going to have at their disposal.
I mean, maybe, I don't know.
Jamil, that's an interesting point, because like I've known about this process for making seltzers, or what they used to call wine coolers, or any number of those beverages. A lot of them were just essentially beer that all the flavor got filtered out of. But if you think about that, just the inverse of that, right? You're you're de-alcoholizing, and you're filtering out the alcohol and keeping the beer. Or as you were just saying, you can use the alcohol for one thing and use the beer, the flavor part, for something else, namely like a non-alcoholic beer.
Exactly. You end up with two product streams that you can use.
You need a distiller's license to do that, I wonder. It's
No.
not distilling, so yeah, it shouldn't be.
You can't use the alcohol to add to other beers that you make, but you can use it to make a seltzer, because a seltzer is not TTB regulated, or at least you don't have to file a formula or anything like that. It's a FDA regulation on the seltzer, because there's no hops in it.
Or you can make Zima with it. That would be cool.
Right.
Whatever flavors in that, I don't know.
Making non-alcoholic beer, you can take that alcohol and then make another alcoholic product with that remains.
Correct.
That's
or you can
to me.
That's less regulated than beer.
Yes. Well, I mean,
in a sense.
Well, yeah, it's different set of regulations.
That's true. I'm not sure if you call dealing with the FDA less regulated.
Right. Yeah.
I used to work in medical device land, and that's not always the easiest thing to deal with.
Right. They'll the TTB tends to check everything ahead of time and then follow up with you again. Whereas the FDA tends to go like, well, hey, we wrote the regulations, you guys should be following them. And then when they find out you didn't, at some point, somebody complains or somebody dies or something, then they're like, hey, now you're in trouble.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a slightly different way of working it.
Very hands off.
We should just turn this into the regulations show, because that's just so fascinating to talk about. Like, go deep into the regulations of beer making. You know all about them inside and out by now, I'm sure, Jamil.
The second way that you might do it is to essentially distill it, right? Which you vaporize the alcohol. So under pressure and at a relatively lower, at a lower temperature than the boiling point of alcohol, because, or under, not under pressure, but under vacuum. You put it under a vacuum, and then you apply a bit of heat, and then the alcohol vaporizes. You remove the alcohol that way. The drawback to that one is you're applying heat to the beer, and the more heat you apply, the more rapidly stale the beer will go over time, and you get some heat staling. So I have tasted beers from that process, and they have other equipment that is, I think, even vastly more expensive than the membrane filter, but it doesn't require replacement membranes. It's capable of larger throughputs, things like that. And I've tasted beers from that, and they tasted pretty good too. The third method that is out and about right now is there are companies, for example, Muntons is making a non-alcoholic extract. So they make an extract that tastes like a finished beer, and you add that to water, and then you can dry hop it. You can one of the things that we did, they sent us a fair amount of this, and we messed around with it. You boil some water with some hops, get yourself some bittering. You do a number of these things, and then one of the tips that they had for that was to add back a little bit of beer, actual fermented beer, to take you up to the 0.5%, because that gives you some of that fermentation character that's otherwise lacking.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And I think that that's probably the easiest for homebrewers to do, would be something similar to that. One of the thoughts that we had was, well, how are they making this extract? Obviously they probably have a lot more malt technology and malt extract technology than I'll ever have or understand.
Sure.
But one of the thoughts I had was, well, perhaps you take some, grains that are more dextrin grains. You take, a Cura Pils or something that, does not ferment that much. Give it a high mash temperature, and then, ferment that and see if you can get it to ferment less than, the 0.5%. And, I know homebrewers have probably tried that before. I don't know. That's one thing I haven't tried, but I imagine you could, take yourself some, dextrin malts, or maybe even maltodextrin, some, some crystal malts, things like that. And then ferment them, and if needed, water it back down a little bit to get yourself below 0.5%.
Trying to make as flavorful a beer as you can with as little fermentables in it, basically. Just keep it super low gravity to start and get down
Right.
just a little bit, so you still have that fermentation. Yeah, that's an interesting approach.
And one of the things about making homebrewed non-alcoholic beer is, or anybody making non-alcoholic beer is, the more flavor you have in there, the less alcohol you need to make it seem like beer. Or the more sins it covers up. So hoppier beers, roastier beers, all tend to do well, I think.
Yeah, and I've had a fair amount, I think, of these beers, and it is hard because the first ones I've had were roastier beers, because I thought the same. I'm like, okay, like this porter is going to be, whatever, and it ends up coming out. At least the early ones that I had were very worty, like unfermented,
right?
Wort. And I don't know where that comes from. Maybe it's a little bit of applying the heat, like you said, maybe distilling it and sort of driving it off, or I don't know. I mean, depending on how big these machines are, and like you said, they're $90,000-$100,000 or more. I can't imagine a craft brewery being able to justify doing that. That's weird.
Craft brewing in general is a very capital intensive, business.
Yeah.
You need to, spend, a lot of money in order to have the gear you need to run.
Okay.
So,
okay.
It's something that can be justified. I think the company that's doing the membranes, they have a program where, is it them or somebody else, where they'll, set up they'll actually put the thing in for you. They won't cost you anything. And then when you run it, you have to pay them per batch that you run. And then they're also going to rent it out to other people that can come to your brewery and run it, or you run it for them. So that's one of the ways to knock the price down, I guess.
I kind of like that. I mean, for people who have a lot of space, maybe at like Heretic or 21st Amendment or whatever, because they have more space than the moon. that would be kind of interesting. That's an interesting program. That's a pretty smart way to cut the cost for the brewer.
Yeah, well, they're trying to break into those markets, and for brewers, you have to essentially show them how it's going to improve their beer, which it's non-alcoholic beer. So I guess if you're really into non-alcoholics, and then you also you need to justify the cost. The problem with non-alcoholic beer is people expect it to be cheaper because it doesn't have alcohol in it.
But that's true.
We actually have to do more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not, and in fact, it's the same, or maybe sometimes a little bit more, because you have an extra step, right?
Yeah, because you're having to brew beer, and then you're having to run it through additional process. I guess with the system that splits it into two streams, product streams, you get to sell twice as much. You could sell, again, a seltzer, and you could sell a non-alcoholic beer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's true. I was just thinking about going to one of these breweries, wherever it is, and trying it pre, alcohol removal. I think that'd be nice, like side by side comparison.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
have you heard of any enzymes or anything like that? I thought there was like some enzymes out there as well for people to really be able to sort of enzymatically control fermentation. Do you know about that, or am I making that up? I might be just totally inventing that.
I haven't heard of that. I know there's some low alcohol yeast strains you can use, and even some GMO ones that will just not attenuate certain sugars. They just won't ferment maltose for whatever. They're just engineered not to do it.
But then it tastes wordy.
Then it tastes wordy. Yeah.
It's probably what I've been drinking.
But it still ferments. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. How do you tackle recipe formulation for something like that? I mean, if we're doing it on the homebrew level, like you said, we're not going to be doing the machines. We're probably going to be sort of massaging our recipes. But I think we're all used to making beers that have that are full flavor. So how do you approach? Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is, what's missing from a non-alcoholic beer that you make at home, and how do you counter that? Does that make sense?
What's missing is the alcohol.
Okay, well, listen, smartass. I mean, like flavor wise, right? Like, is there a component where we have to go, okay, well, there's not a whole lot of base malt in here, or so we have to add more.
I think a big part of it is, the fermentation character, because fermentation is a huge part of beer. Mm-hmm. And when through some of these processes, maybe a different yeast, or an enzymatic way of doing it, or the non-alcoholic worts or malt extracts, things like that. There's no fermentation, or it's not really true correct fermentation. So you end up missing that kind of that ester profile, or there's in lagers there's some sulfur and some other compounds and esters as well. So you need to find some solution for that. That's why the membrane thing works really well. The interesting thing for me is a lot of the original one of the reasons people don't like non-alcoholic beers, I think, is because originally the only thing they wanted to make non-alcoholic was a light pilsner of some kind, or a light lager.
Yeah.
Because that's the biggest market, and so we'll just do that. And so it just didn't taste very good until I think Heineken's new product is actually pretty good.
Heineken Double Zero, we are big fans.
I just had one, yeah.
And so I think that really has helped, and there's some IPAs and stuff on the market that I think also taste pretty darn good. So now that I think there's new technology, and there's new ideas about beer flavors that people want. I think it's come a long ways.
Okay. Well, let's crack some of these beers that we have
Yeah.
I did bring you some non-alcoholic beers. The first one I want to talk about is the Black Butte Porter. We've been teasing this on the show for, I don't know, like a month now. Black Butte Porter, by the way, from Deschutes, is now in non-alcoholic form. So we each have a can of non-alcoholic and a bottle of alcoholic, full leaded or whatever. And I'm curious to get your guys' take on it. I've had both of them side by side a couple weeks ago. I don't want to, dilute the judge pool or whatever people
Taint us.
doing. Yeah, I don't want to taint you. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts, and I would love to be on like a design feedback panel of like comparing these two in development, right? Because I would love to know how they tweak this to get it to taste like the porter. You know what I mean? Like, what do they do in the beginning to make it come out tasting the way it does? And I would love to taste that beer too. Basically, I should just own a non-alcoholic brewery, I think.
Yeah.
It's interesting because on the top of the can it says non-alcoholic malt brew. Are they not calling it beer for a reason? Malt brew? I never noticed that before. And I can't read the everything is blurry on the
There are some restrictions on what you can say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's clearly got to be some kind of, as Jamil was saying earlier, some kind of TTB or FDA regulation for what you can call it.
I don't think that all NAs say that. It might just be a marketing thing.
I think it's just theirs, but
It's just there.
there are things, regulations on what you can say.
Okay. So what do you guys think about this? Does it taste like Deschutes Black Butte Porter, which admittedly I'm not really the biggest fan of, but I know everyone loves it, but I can't. It's too fruity.
It's close in a sense. I'm not getting the fruitiness, and I'm getting it maybe thinner in body than I'm used to a Black Butte Porter having. But it's decent. I don't think it's as close as the Guinness 0.0
No,
is to Guinness. Which once you turned me on to that, JP, a couple of shows ago, I love that stuff. I can't get enough of that.
Yeah, it's
but
good
this
stuff,
is
man.
if that's like close within like 10%. This is maybe close within maybe 25%, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, Guinness is pretty thin though to start with, so I think that kind of gives it an advantage.
4%. Yeah.
Yeah, and the way that I describe the Guinness Zero is like it sort of tastes like terribly treated Guinness, like a little heat damaged Guinness already. Guinness can go from perfect to just terrible in 5 degrees in a day on the shelf. For me, it's very volatile the way we get it all the way out here. So, anyway, that's
so
what
in the NA version of the Black Butte, I'm getting a little more of a kind of a raw malt flavor, like like fresh crushed grains as opposed to like grains that have been through a fermentation process as much.
That smell when you walk into the malt room?
Yeah.
That's the smell that I get out of the can. Thank you for putting that way. It is that bright malt, almost malt dusty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's oxidized or anything, but you get almost some of that character too, maybe, but it's
I don't know. I think that this is one that's probably run through a membrane.
Why do you say that?
I don't get any raw malt. I think that the can is fresher than the bottle. The bottle's a little stale.
Well, you probably.
Well, I think that maybe what it is what's missing though, not the process. Just that with the alcohol sweetness missing, you get more of that dusty malt character.
Yeah, that I think you're right. Yeah,
thinner.
The bottle is packaged on 1/18/22, and then the can says 01/05/22. I think that's a can on it. So I think that they're basically within a week or two of each other.
Very close. Yeah. I have the same can and bottle here from you. So
yeah. It's all the same.
The bottle doesn't taste like a fresh black Butte to me.
Probably not.
Admittedly, it's been a while.
It has been a while. Well, and look, I got these from Total Wine. They're not the best taking carers of beer at all. So it's
if I'm gonna have a
garage.
A black Butte, it'll usually be from draft at a good brew pub that I know, and okay, they have that. Yeah, I'll take a pint of that.
It's sort of pokey and not really smooth, but I mean, for me, the main difference, I don't think these taste alike at all. I think it's almost a misnomer that it's a black Butte non-alcoholic, because there is no, I mean, the mouthfeel is so absent. It's so thin and watery. It's very
because the alcohol has been replaced with water.
Right. And it's a stronger beer than Heineken or Guinness to do that too. So
right.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Jamil. And that probably explains why a lot of these NA beers end up coming across as watery and a little thin. Even though ethanol, I mean, it's not like it's the heaviest molecule in the world, but it does have certain ways that it coats your tongue or your mouth, or gives you a perception that's different and a little more substantial than water, even though the grand scheme of things, if you were to set it down with, measure the weight by volume and everything else, it's probably not that much different from water, like a molecular weight type standpoint. Is the perception is a lot different.
Yeah, the it's size of the molecules or whatever.
Yeah.
You get it more in your mouth than you do with just water.
The black Butte is only a 5.5% or 2, so it's not like we're going to making a Belgian quad NA or something, but it's a little bit stronger than the others. So that's maybe a bigger noticeable difference, but it could just be a recipe thing too, or a process thing. I don't really know what they do with it, but yeah, you're probably right. It might be the membrane thing. They can definitely afford that up there, and they make a great product.
It seems to me although I get some staling out of the non-alcoholic one too.
I was going to say, making an NA beer, it seems like it would be more prone to oxygenation because you're doing more to it in general than just a regular beer. You're having to go back and remove alcohol. And,
right.
Whether you're heating it or not, it's still going to be more processing and more handling and more moving the beer.
Yeah. I wonder if, how much of that staling is just inherent within the process.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I think I do get a little sense of a little oxidation or something in there, that it's not detracting horribly, but and it's a nice flavorful beer. I really like that it's bold, and it if you tasted this 10 years ago when all there was Clausthaler and O'Doul's, this is wow, this is non-alcoholic. But now there's so many other choices. I'm getting picky about it. It's like, I like that Guinness. I like that Heineken, and I don't mind the Lagunitas NA IPA. That's a good drinkable. It's not their IPA, or it's IPA like enough that I can enjoy drinking one if I don't want to have alcohol at that time.
Have you had their hop water?
Yeah,
I live off that stuff.
I know you like that. Yeah,
I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah,
over ice.
Yeah,
over ice. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like hops, so I haven't had that much. I need to try that one again. It's been a long time.
JP, I finally had that hoppy refresher you gave me like 2 months ago. I don't know why I just let it sit in my fridge for a while. That's really damn good.
That's what we're talking about. It's great stuff. I
was out like doing yard work and stuff in my backyard Saturday, and cutting branches off of trees and shit, being all manly and whatever. And I was really tired and hot afterwards, and I had that hoppy refresher, and man, that was really good.
Dude, I've been really into the Day Pack series of like hop waters from Athletic, and but they're flavored. It's like mango. Nice. It's like a light. It's almost like a seltzer, but with hops. I don't know what it is about the earthy. It's like those earthy, almost citrusy notes of what hops they use with that mango flavoring, and just suck them down all day. But anyway, I digress.
Can I step back to recipe formulation on this just a little bit too? I got a couple of things I wanted to mention. When you're making a non-alcoholic beer, if you're doing a process at home to remove the alcohol, you're going to want to consider how much more flavorful that beer is going to be. If it's concentrated, it's going to be more bitter per unit of volume. It's going to have more maltiness per unit of volume. So there might be things you want to back off. If you're doing the method where you want to, just do a very little fermentation, you want to just push up the dextrins and things that the yeast can't ferment. So things like that you can play with, and try to dial that in. One other thing I wanted to mention, and we did a homebrew presentation. Jamil, you did a great job covering the ways commercially they do it. We talked about trying to do it on a homebrew scale, and they mentioned all those commercial ways. But really the easiest way you can do if you want to make an NA beer at home is to boil off the alcohol. It boils at 173 point something degrees. You can, if you have a precise oven and a good thermometer, you can set it to, and a big enough vat to put the beer you want to remove the alcohol from, and you don't care about losing it. You can put it in your oven at 180 degrees until you're satisfied that all the alcohol has been driven off. And
I'd be careful about that.
It's pretty abusive to the beer, probably. But
well, no, I'd avoid trapping alcohol vapor in an oven.
Yeah. That does sound a little dangerous. Yeah.
Dangerous. Yeah. I'd do it more like on a stove top or something like that.
On a stove
top. Well, and
it's
the same thing as the commercial thing. If you could apply a little bit of vacuum to it, you can drop your temperature substantially. Yeah.
Well, you can get a nice sous vide wand for less than $50 probably these days. So keep it at that temperature for that however amount of time you need to get it.
Yeah, I was thinking
out with good ventilation. Just do that.
It's churning the beer underneath it. That's how it moves. So I wonder if you put it in a bag, and then a big sous vide bag. I mean, you could really get technical with it if you wanted to.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I'll look at some enzyme, see if we can nail that. If I was just making it up about enzymes or not, and if they're available on the homebrew scale. I don't know. There's got to be some way to sort of enzymatically block fermentation without making it overly sweet. I don't know.
Yeah. Right, but then, I mean, then why not just not ferment it?
I see. Yeah.
I thought you meant to enzymatically convert the alcohol into something else, but
yeah.
It is going to turn into acetaldehyde or something really nasty. Great, thanks. Woo!
Green apple beer.
Brewing. They sell on eBay. They sell vacuum chamber vessels along with a pump. I think the vacuum chamber, good size ones, like 5 gallon or so.
Is it a Swedish vacuum pump?
With a lid and with the vacuum pump. The whole thing is like $100 or whatever. We used it for can testing and stuff. I imagine you could use one of those, put your beer in it, turn on the vacuum pump, and then gently start raising the temperature and draw off the vacuum. And you wouldn't have to get the temperature quite so high.
Okay. That sounds cool.
Might be one way to do it.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Put it on a, electric, maybe hot plate or something that you could control the temperature.
Yeah. That'd be cool. If anyone out there tries it, let me know. And if it blows up, don't sue us. Right. One last thing I wanted to mention is the other can I gave you was from Athletic. I know I'm like simping for Athletic Brewing lately, but it's a dry stout, dry Irish stout. I think it's one of the better non-alcoholic beers that I've had. And I wanted to get you guys' take on it too. I mean, a dry Irish stout is sort of hard to make I think. And then a non-alcoholic version is probably harder. I like it. It's now like my favorite beer from them. But I want to see what you guys think about it. Give that a
okay.
Go.
Yeah, I just poured that
slug. Yeah.
I'm getting an interesting kind of a little almost cannabis-like note in the nose. I don't know, like a weird skunkiness to it.
Right.
Huh.
Resiny. Yeah, that's interesting.
I gave
cannabis is right on the money.
Cannabis. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I had one.
I have a neighbor, yeah.
Your neighbor. Sure. Yeah.
And it's like somebody, lighten up because there's a burnt note to it as well.
Yeah. It smells like bong water almost.
Yeah.
Wow.
Or an ashtray after a heavy night of.
I haven't taken a sip of it yet, so that this is probably hopefully one of those cases where the flavor's a little different than the aroma. But yeah, no, thank you, Jamil.
100% spot on with those.
Man.
It's not a bad aroma. I actually I enjoy the aroma of cannabis. So
Yeah,
you
but
like that?
Like the
But
smelling the end of a doob.
it's like a Medi beer. It's like, yeah.
All right.
My buddy Roberto makes some Medi beers sometimes.
Sure does.
Roberto. Yeah.
That is for sure.
Roberto.
It's interesting. To me, it's got a little bit of a almost a rubbery aroma, like brown malt. And brown malt to me has a very distinctive sort of almost tire rubber type of aroma. But it's not overwhelming. It's just something that's kind of there. It's definitely, it definitely tastes like beer.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. It tastes probably the closest. I don't know the closest, but it's one of those beers where it tastes like beer, man. And I think that's if you can make a non-alcoholic beer and confuse it with beer, I think that you're perfect. I think that's great.
Yeah. I don't know what tricks you would use to substitute for the flavor of alcohol, which,
I don't know either. I gotta know.
Yeah, they won't talk about it.
No.
Yeah.
I asked them point blank. They're like, we can't tell you.
But it's got a crispness to it. I would consider this well attenuated. I wouldn't think of this as watery. This is closer to a beer than that the Black Butte non-alcoholic that we just had, in my opinion.
It's very dry. Well, there's also something to be said for low alcohol beers. Now, I just mixed the Black Butte non-alcoholic half and half with the Black Butte.
I did too.
And
wait,
it's actually
Cooper, you mixed beers? Tell me.
I think
so.
I never do this, but it's actually more enjoyable than either one. I think it's kind of the blend is better than the sum of its parts. I don't know.
Maybe I'll run into my kitchen in a second and do that.
Does the Athletic just have some hops in it that we're coming across as kind of
maybe
dank and cannabisy?
I think a lot of their beers are sort of earthy hops, and I wonder if that is by choice, because it sort of brings the general hoppy beer vibe through to these beers. I don't think really are for like hardcore craft beer nerds like us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they do a good job of making a wide variety of beers.
They do an excellent job, and I promise one day I'll stop doing free commercials for them.
If you like a certain style of beer that is not produced often, and you can only get it by going to craft breweries, well, now you can have an NA version of it. Yeah, that's not half bad.
Brendan in the chat asks, how does one prevent wart spoilers and other pathogens on a limited fermentation on a very low OG brew?
Well, very careful, process control. It's got a cleaning, sanitizing, and you just need to be very, very, very careful. If your pH is low enough, then that protects you somewhat against pathogens.
You can put a lot of hops in it.
Okay. Well,
that's going to help a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
So since JP generously provided me one of the cans of Guinness, I cracked that open too, since you guys have all had it.
Yeah.
Very much like grape Kool-Aid. It has a grape Kool-Aid character to it.
Shit. Huh. I'm going to go get mine. I have one more can left. I'm going to go get it at the break. A grape Kool-Aid. Okay. I mean, because as good as the non-alcoholic Guinness tastes, it's not perfect. You can't have one and confuse it with a normal one. But if you have a normal one, maybe two, and you grab one of these, you'll never know.
I think if I was out drinking something else all night and then somebody poured one of those for me and said, hey, got you a Guinness, I'd probably just drink it and not think anything.
You'd never notice. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. And
when your palate is blown, might as well drink NA, right?
You're hammered,
This is why I could see these fitting into my non-alcoholic beers, fitting into my like sort of drinking rotation. It's like, because it's sort of like a night saver. If you want to have a night, like the other night, it was Greek Easter, by the way, Christos Anesti for my fellow Orthodox. And, we had shots of ouzo. I had like 3 or 4 beers with my nephew. They left. I had another beer and I had another beer. And that was the mistake. It's that mistake beer. But if I thought about it beforehand, I would have had one of these Johns and not felt so miserable the next day. Absolutely just fucking destroyed.
You got to know that point. Yeah.
And I do. And I was like, oh, I don't drink that much anymore. Let's go. And
Whatever.
that's wrong. That we should have stopped. And we didn't.
You're lightweight. You're a cheap date these days, buddy.
I am, dude, for sure. Well, I mean, 5 shots of Ouzo doesn't necessarily help matters next morning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, look, man, Jamil, thanks a lot for the knowledge. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming in and tasting some of these non-alcoholic beers. You're going to stay with us for the next segment, right? We actually have a homebrew, for God's sakes, and we have an American brown ale to judge. And you're going to go over your judging notes with the boys. We're going to talk to Jason. Jason is the brewer, and so we're going to get him in here and come right back. So hang on, everybody. Don't go anywhere. It's Dr. Homebrew. We'll be right back. Hey, thanks for sticking around, everybody. We are joined by Jason. This is about as close to a Council of the Jasons as I think we're going to get. Normally, Council of the Bryans happens when there's three Bryans. But 2 Jasons, I think, equals 3 Bryans. Right, Jason?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we can make, you know what, Jason, I think we should do is make Jamil an honorary Jason for the show.
He's got the right first letter.
He's got the right first letter. There's an A in there too somewhere. I think it's good.
Yeah.
Welcome
Jake
Zanishev to the show, everybody.
JK, JZ, and JP in the house.
The Council of Jays.
Yeah, I love it. It's good, man. What did you send us, Jason?
So it's an American brown. Been a while since
first time? You first time brown guy?
So
Right.
last time I brewed this it's 20, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I sent it into the Oregon State Fair, got second place overall in the brown and amber super category that they put together.
Oh, nice. Congrats, man. That sounds like a big category.
'Cause you're one of those competitive homebrewing guys, eh?
Yeah, not quite as active I live very rural, so it's extremely expensive to send stuff off to competition.
Yeah.
So not as much as some of those other guys. So
Yeah, we interviewed some of those guys that run that page, and it's it's always a fun discussion on there. And they were super nerdy and fun to talk to. I loved it.
yeah. So this is a little bit different than this beer is a little bit different than what I sent into the state fair. I made some adjustments based off the judges' comments. Pretty much.
Never listen to judges.
Well, they both said it was too hoppy, so I figured I'd drop the hop profile some. And
An American brown that's too hoppy?
yeah, and in Portland, Oregon. So
Oh my God.
Someone from that part saying it's too hoppy. It's got to be too hoppy. So
Oh my God. They probably imported someone from Washington to say that. I don't know why. It's a slam on Washington. Okay. Well, look, Brian Shar, why don't you start us off, dude, and tell Jason your thoughts on his American brown ale, please.
I certainly will. Thanks, Jason, for sharing. And before we get started, are you in a homebrew club?
if you look at the AHA website and check out homebrew clubs, I am, but I'm the only member in the homebrew club. Like I said.
Woohoo! Did you start off as a one-person club, or did you drive everyone else out, or what?
No, I started off as a one-person club. I've done a couple of events to try to get people to join and stuff, but I live in a town of 800 people. The county I live in is about the size of Northern Ireland with a total population of 7,000.
Oh man, what state are you in? Are you in Pennsylvania?
I'm in Oregon.
Oregon? I see you have a Penn State shirt, so I guessed that. Now, Oregon has got to be challenging in some places, like you're saying, low population density, but there's also got to be a lot of clubs in Oregon already.
It depends. If you go east of Hood River, there's nothing.
Right. Well, you just wanted to be able.
There's not nothing. There's you.
Well, yeah.
You wanted to be able to. Yeah, enter with a club name, as you know. So you got an official club. You could enter as your club name, and maybe someday your club will win the homebrew club of the year. You never know.
That's right. All right, Brian Shar, why don't you go ahead and tell Jason your thoughts? I
almost had one of our 7,000 cats just knock over the American brown there. So it was very fortunate. You probably just saw me. Anyone watching on video is probably watching and the sudden. That was actually, we only have 4 cats, and it's probably our most sedate one. just about knocked all my shit over, and would have knocked it over right on my phone and my laptop. So
Nice.
yay, that's great. But all right, so this is American Brown, turning to the Aroma. It's sort of a medium chocolate, medium raisin. I got kind of a medium phenol that was both a sort of a smoky and a plastic. Low hop aroma. What I got was kind of a floral aroma. I'll talk a little bit about what I think it might be in the flavors. It's a little more pronounced in the flavor. 6 out of 12 for aroma. Appearance, medium to dark brown in color. There, this is settled, but there was a large head, and it is, as you can tell, there you go, somewhat persistent, clear with a slight haze. So 3 out of 3 for appearance. Flavor, at first the flavor I got was brown malt, and I'll be curious if you used brown malt. You can tell us later on. I'm really sensitive to that because 10 plus years ago, I made a mild with brown malt essentially as a base malt, and it came out extremely phenolic, extremely almost like a tire rubber character to it. And that's almost kind of overwhelming to me in this beer, in the flavor. It's sort of a smoky, sort of a at least partly phenolic, but really just kind of this, what to me is the flavor of brown malt is just almost overwhelming, to the exclusion of everything else. I don't really get any hop flavor. If I kind of strain, I can imagine there's some in mid palate. It's well attenuated, and kind of one dimensional with just that brown malt. So I gave that 6 out of 20 for flavor. Body is medium, carbonation's medium, not creamy or warming. I probably should give you a point back here because I get some astringency from kind of the phenol, but you're not supposed to double ding people for that. It's the phenol is a flavor and not a mouthfeel. So I'll give you a 5 for the mouthfeel. Overall impression was 5 for a total of 24. I really appreciate you sharing this. And this may just be a personal sensitivity to brown malt and experiences that I've had, but to me, it just tastes like, and I don't want to make an assumption, but what I would suspect is that you brewed this all grain, that you used a very high percentage of brown malt, and that stuff to me just tends to throw a really high amount of that rubber and somewhat phenolic character when it's used more than sparingly, kind of like Special B or something like that. It's a very strong and powerful malt, and I feel like maybe it just got overused here. There's nothing that you've done that I think is bad from a technical or process standpoint. I'm not getting the only off flavors that I'm getting are ones I associate with that malt. I'm not getting weird esters or sourness or anything that would indicate to me a bad process. To me, I suspect this is simply a recipe issue, and that's much easier to fix than a process issue. But yeah, I appreciate you sharing, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to come across like I'm crapping all over your beer here, but that was my opinion. So
thank you, Brian.
Cooper?
I will preface this by saying that I have not been traumatized, nor have I had any life-altering aversions for them due to brewing a beer with brown malt. I don't think I've ever used brown malt. So just putting that out there to start. Bottle had a nice hiss upon opening. We're judging as a 19C 2015 guidelines. I suppose we should go to the 2021 guidelines at some point soon. Yeah. Anyway, nice hiss on opening, a good bottle fill, clean bottle. Aroma wise, I'm getting a pretty rich chocolatey aroma up front, also kind of a strong nuttiness to it. There's some notes of dark caramel low. There's a kind of a low somewhat resiny hop note in there, but it's really far behind the malt, super subdued. There's not a lot of fruity esters jumping out here. They're pretty low. There's some little bit of alcohol noticeable in there. I didn't get any DMS or diacetyl. There were real big process faults there. That seemed like a decent balance between the malt and hops, but the malt wins there. Color wise, it's a nice medium light brown, fairly clear. Just a bit of haze detected. If you look at the sizes, it's a little bit light. It's almost, it's in the range though. It's definitely not out for color, but it's a little on this orangey brown kind of end of the spectrum, orangey light brown kind of. Has a well-formed tan colored head that, started kind of medium, mostly finer bubbles, and it stuck around quite well. Good head retention. Flavor wise, so yeah, there's a dark chocolate aspect to it. I get kind of what you're saying, Brian, like a light phenolic kind of note there too. I just think that there's some dark bread, some faint coffee. What I got maybe as what you're getting is this medium high bitterness, like a rich kind of bitter edge from the malt that I thought was poking out a little too strongly. Gives it kind of a rough edge to it. It does seem
that's
mostly...
a fair characterization. And when you say that, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's not at all inconsistent with how I was maybe not as colorfully describing that.
It's similar to a phenolic or an astringent kind of thing, because I did get some astringency when we get to mouthfeel. But I think it's a malt derived. To me, I'm fairly sensitive to phenolics, and if there's a big spicy or medicinal phenolic, I'm not getting the same level of any kind of rubbery or plasticky notes that you might have been getting, but just that kind of harsh malt derived roughness. The hops themselves are low. The hop bitterness seems low. Just a light resiny citrusy note in there. Provides a little bit of balance to it. It's quite dry in the finish. It gives the impression of kind of a harsh, like baker's chocolate kind of thing. Like not the kind of chocolate I eat dark chocolate every day, 1 square every morning. Good for your heart. Sure. But
that's medicinal chocolate from the medicinal chocolate dispensary.
I have that with my coffee, and it just works really nicely for me. It's my morning thing.
Yeah, the cross is brown.
Yeah. So, otherwise the beer, it seems
that deserved more love than it got.
Thanks,
JP.
Man. It's welcome to my life. Sure.
I didn't.
It's all right. No, go ahead. You did great, Cooper. Keep going. You did great.
The ales, the fermentation profile seems fairly clean to me. There's a moderate smooth alcohol noted, but overall the flavor could be smoother. And the mouthfeel, I get a drying, but not super astringent character. There's a little bit of astringency, and it's just like this roughness from the malt. I'll attribute it to. It's probably the dominant aspect in the mouthfeel. The beer is not really creamy or smooth at all. It's also not too harsh or biting. It's just has a bit of an attack, kind of medium body, medium CO2, but just being really dry in the finish, and then just biting with everything that's there, and that little attack on the mouthfeel too. Might be also like, it seems pretty well carbonated, might be a little higher than medium, it might be medium high. That's kind of pushing a lot of, bite, and the flavors kind of aren't playing well with that mouthfeel to me. So I guess I would kind of disagree with Brian. I think the mouthfeel is part of the problem here too. I wouldn't give it a 5 there, but we'll get the gloves on later. Overall, the beer goes down fairly nicely and has a good number of the desired elements of an American brown ale. I feel a touch more aroma hop would give it better balance, along with a hint more sweetness to play off the rich chocolatey qualities that are there. Nice job keeping the fermentation clean and fairly well cared for there. I would just work to reduce that slight astringency, avoid over sparging or steeping into, high pH, too hot, too, too low a gravity kind of a situation where you're going to extract harshness from the grains. But I'd keep brewing this. I landed at I'll give it an even 30. I think that puts it into the very low end of very good, generally within the style parameters, but some minor flaws. I don't think the flaws are earth shattering to me. That there's a little astringency. There might be the flavors that are going on are kind of detracting from it a little bit, the harshness. But other than that, it's not too bad. I just think, and I do say too that I tend to prefer a hoppier American brown ale. So I think those judges might have been off their rockers. I probably would have liked to taste the other one you brewed more than this one. So I hope that seems fair. But thank you for sending it, and I appreciate that.
All right, Jamil, Jason Zanishev. You're muted, I think.
He's muted.
Jams.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Dog was barking, so I muted myself. I will say one of the things that the recent style guide changes, they moved the hoppy American browns over to some special IPA category or something. On the basis that, well, commercial brewers aren't brewing the hoppy ones, so it should all be less hoppy. So maybe that's part of the reasoning on why they told you it should be less hoppy. I'm with Brian on this about American brown should be hoppier.
All like the Janet's brown, baby.
Yeah, there you go. Bottle inspection all looked good. Everything was, I'd say, perfect from the initial bottle inspection. Aroma, milk chocolate up front, some roast coffee. There was kind of an oak smoke, like burning oak smoke character. The esters were low. The hop character was really low for me, and I expect at least some notable hop character in there. But again, they've moved like Moose Drool into American brown, which Moose Drool is
like brown IPA.
Yeah, Moose Drool is brewed with a British yeast and has some fruity esters, and so I'm not sure why Moose Drool is in American brown now, and I'm not sure what they did there. So out of that, I give you a 5 out of 12. It shouldn't be quite so roasty in the aroma. There shouldn't be any smoky notes in the aroma. Going to Brian Schar's point about phenols, the smoke is a phenol too. So for me, I got the phenols that he's talking about. Appearance, it was hazy. The color was light, as Cooper's saying. It was kind of a deep copper, amber. Should have been a little darker. Had a large head. Cooper was talking about the carbonation as well. A bit too much carbonation, perhaps. And good tan color bubbles, but they were mixed size. There were quite a few large fish eyes in there. And so one of the things you want to do when you are, before you package, you want to make sure that any fines have dropped out, because that's going to give you the large fish eyes.
Yeah, I bottled this straight off my unit tank.
Yeah, so there you go.
Fish eyes. I'm going to use that one. Thank you,
Yeah,
Jamil.
okay. All right. That's cool.
Yeah, that's a real good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's from those microscopic fine particles, or unclean bottles or something like it. The bottle looked perfect. So, like you're saying, Jason, it is probably from bottling off the unit tank. Flavor wise, so for appearance, I just gave it a 1. Flavor wise, I put down some phenolic notes, smoky, a slight medicinal. Let's see here, firm bittering, balanced towards the bitter, a bit of caramel sweetness. There was toast, some burnt toast in there. and a little bit of heat in the back end from the alcohol. Got that, as well as some lingering yeast lysis notes. Kind of, there it seemed a tiny bit meaty or doughy. It's way in the background, but for me, that comes across. That's one of the things I'm real sensitive to, just because I'm always tasting for old beers and things. Mouthfeel I thought was really very creamy and luscious for that style of beer. A lot of times you'll get American browns, and they're very dry and biting, and not a lot of mouthfeel to them. So it's nice to have that in there. There was a slight astringency in the finish, and I think it's, again, goes to what Shar was talking about in the perhaps if there was brown malt in there, or there's something in there that is causing that. I think it may just be, a bit too much. I assumed it was a bit too much, like highly kilned malt, like a roast barley or something that really was adding these notes to it. I will say that there's, over the last 20 years or so, there's been different brown malts available. And so there's brown malts I've seen out there that were like something like 60 Lovibond, and there's brown malts out there that are like 10 Lovibond. And so depending on which one you use, you'll get a completely different flavor. And like Shar is saying, if you use too much of the wrong brown malt, it can be overwhelmingly, as he describes. If you use one of the lower level brown malts, it adds this, nutty, character to it. Overall impression. Okay, so let's see. Flavor, I give it a 10. Mouthfeel, I give it a 3. The overall impression, I give it a 6. I thought it's a decent modern American brown. It could use a touch more hop character. The clarity could be improved, a bit more color, and less of the roasty phenolics. And I came out with a 25. Shar and I tend to be within a point of each other every time we judge.
Yeah, we're just that much in sync, Jamil.
We are.
Yeah, I agree with the roasty edge to it in the nose. I get that as we're going through it too. Yeah.
But I think overall, like I think both Brians were saying that it's a well-made beer. There's just a few little things that would need to be tweaked. And I also realized we have a full house, 3 Jasons, 2 Brians. That's a full house.
That's right.
Yeah.
That means we win.
Right. That's right, baby. Double
all of us. We all of us win, and the audience wins too.
Always bet on Dr. Homebrew.
That's right. Jason, you want to run us through your recipe real fast?
Yeah, let me pull up Beersmith real quick.
There's going to be no brown malt in here at all.
I was thinking that when you were saying brown malt.
I made a bold call, and I'm prepared to be proven wrong.
All right, so here we go. We'll start with malt. So we got 4% Special B, 7.5% biscuit, 15% brown, the rest 2-row.
Well, that's where the raisin that I got came from, was that Special B.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the brown a little bit too can have.
Yeah, that's a lot of brown.
Yeah.
And then a pound of dark brown sugar.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And then for the hops, at 60 minutes, we got 25 IBU of EKGs. At 20 minutes, we got 3.5 IBUs of EKGs. And then at 10 minutes, we got 5.5 IBU of Chinook. And then Rural Flock, Cervomyces, and my house strain of what was originally WOP-005.
I gotta ask, why the dark brown sugar? I mean, American brown. What is the ABV on this? Like 6 or something like that, maybe?
Well, that's another
But-
problem I had. I think is why it's a little bit drier and a little more astringent than it'd be. I had a little problem with the fermentation.
Okay.
It got down to 52 degrees.
Oh, gee.
It wasn't as warm outside as I thought it would, and it turns out the neoprene jacket on my unit tank doesn't actually do anything.
Damn. Way to find out.
But
Because I think you could be getting those flavors from the malt. I don't think you need the sugar in it, but maybe you have.
yeah, the sugar goes back to when I used to bottle and not keg. I used to bottle with the brown sugar to give it a little more flavor.
Oh, that's cool. That's a nice little zhuzh.
It is really
But-
dry though.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
finished. It over attenuated quite a bit. This is only supposed to be like a 5.8 beer, and it finished at like 7.2.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a little,
the same-
little hot for.
Yeah.
So how
Yeah.
did you get it after it got so cold? Was it done fermenting at that point, or did you have the
No,
kick
it didn't
started
even
again
s-
somehow?
It didn't
or-
even start. It took about 9 days for it to start. I had to bring it
Oh.
inside and put it in front of the heater.
Oh, that's so scary when that happens.
Dude, yeah.
Yeah.
That's ruthless.
Problem child.
Well, I'm to be honest with you, Jason, if I were you, I would be thankful that it didn't turn out very good, because then you'd have to do that same shit all the time.
It'd be your house process at that
Yeah.
point.
Not
Yeah,
very
that'd
good, but
be-
you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
Yeah,
What do you
I'd,
think about
I'd say this.
Yeah.
To your point, JP.
Yeah.
Is that it may not be the beer you dreamed of, but it's better than a lot of homebrewed American brown ales out there.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
take that to heart.
Yeah. What do you think of his recipe, Jamil? I mean, 15% brown malt, that's a lot of malt. It's a lot of-
Yeah, I for brown ale for me, I'd lean more on chocolate malt and
pale chocolate.
yeah, and
Oh, yeah, I love
pale
pale chocolate.
chocolate or something like that. Yeah.
You know, it's interesting listening to your guys' comments and Jason listening to the recipe and what happened. I'll be completely honest. When I first tasted it, I was like, I need to put this somewhere. I can't ingest it. It was so bitter. It was overwhelming, but it was like a bitterness that came on at the end. It was like a whole beer, and then it was like an appendix of flavors. It was just at the end, there was just more flavor. But I think now what it is, as it's sort of warming up, I think what that is that it's that hot alcohol expression sort of comes through at the end. And it turns into almost like a
Right.
bitterness thing. And it was very,
That's exactly where I got
Shocking.
it at the very end.
yeah,
That,
at the very
that
end.
the alcohol heat. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
for the most part,
That's a
the beer
good
just sort of
point.
tastes watery, but then not watery, but less body than I would expect. But the core flavors, I think you have like 60% flavor is there, but it's that harshness at the end that comes through. And I think now hearing all these the problems that you had sort of makes sense as to why the beer is the way it is.
Yeah, I got a lot of alcohol in it too. It's like, is this one of those like 7% brown ales or something?
Unfortunately, yeah, it's not supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know,
And I had a little
Jason, I
problem.
like your instinct about trying to you have some malt complexity to it. I think that's a great idea. And I think that as a home brewer, it's easy to add, a couple of percent here and there. And I wouldn't totally get rid of the brown malt in the future or the special B, but I might dial them back to like a couple of percent each. And that's, Jamil, you always talk about like the sack approach for professional brewing. You need to have one sack of this or that.
Right.
But there's no, and as long as you have a reason to add like a couple of percent of this, couple of percent of that, there's nothing wrong with that. Just throwing in the kitchen sink just because you happen to have stuff available, that doesn't lead to good results. But if you have a reason that you want to have, maybe a couple of percent of special B, a couple percent of brown malt, some very kind of strong, flavorful malts, you've got a reason for that in this beer. This is supposed to have a lot of malt complexity to it. And I think having those malts in there is good, just not in the degree that you use them right now.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably see your English malt maybe less percentage than your special B.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would put at least a few percentage points of pale chocolate in there. Maybe some crystal malt. I don't know, guys. What do you think? Like a C15 and 40, like a blend.
Yeah, bring in some of those middle sweet kind of things to play off the darker stuff that's there. I would back off the biscuit for sure. Back that down.
And I don't want to rewrite your recipe, Jason, because if overall, if you like the beer and you want to make the recipe, then that's what we're here to help you out with. But I feel like you could adjust it a little bit and maybe not leave the door open for some of those harsher notes to come through.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely need to go down on the brown model a little, and I need to not have it over attenuated. I had a little problem with my mill too. I had an old MM3 that's been since retired in favor of a Blickman mill, but
there you go.
Like it was pretty bad. As I was doing my grind too, the gap on the mill was slipping up and down.
Oh geez. Okay, so you were just everywhere.
Yeah,
that sucks. It's a problem brew day, man. That sucks.
It came out pretty well for having the problems you said you had. Right. Frankly, this came out pretty nicely.
Yeah, absolutely. I would have thrown it out the window by now.
Yeah,
that's alcohol abuse, man.
Yeah. You can tell you know what you're doing, and you can see you know when you goofed up here and there, so you can do better the next time. And I know you've brewed a lot better beers than this. So,
Jason, do you have any questions for the guys? You want us to address real fast?
Why are you all so mean? Why don't you know anything about beer?
Yeah, you should have given me. I should have had at least a 67 on this beer.
Come on, you ended up on the asshole's homebrew, not the doctor's homebrew, and I don't know.
No, it's all good.
Okay.
Constructive criticism.
Cool.
I do agree. I need to go back to maybe the hoppier version of it, or at least a little bit hoppier version of it. Than,
a little bit,
in this version.
Or the less problematic brew day version of it.
That too.
Yeah, and then, that's only just going to exacerbate any issues. But brew it again and send it in, man. I know it. You said it's you're way out in the sticks, and so it's hard to ship beer. But if you ever get it down here, we'd love to try it again.
Well, and I'd also say, if you get feedback from a set of judges, don't necessarily make any changes on that. Unless you had this really, everybody gave you a terribly low score and they were all hammering about, in every comment they had about, it being way too hoppy. Yeah, maybe, but I enter it a few times, get a few sets of data back, and then make your adjustments, because like Brian was saying, judges are idiots and you don't need to listen to them because they don't know what they're talking about.
I will say, the beer is drinkable and it's dry. As it warms up too, you get a little more sweetness out of it. It's not, completely.
It's not like if I was at your house, I wouldn't drink the beer if you poured it for me. I probably wouldn't be showing up to your house every day asking for more.
Right. Somewhere in there's a compliment, Jason.
I don't know. So I just wouldn't listen to, you're talking about going back to the hoppier version. I'd wait and see, or brew the one that you love the best, enter it in the category it fits best. And then, after you get several sets of sheets from people, then you can start to see a trend, and maybe that's where you tweak it.
Yeah, agreed. Cool. All right, Jason. Well, if that's it, we'll let you go.
All right, cool. Awesome.
Actually, before we let you go, Jason, do you have a to plug your club in case anyone happens to be in East Oregon interested in maybe joining your club? Do you have a website or email or some contact information for that?
If you go on the AHA's website where they got all the clubs listed, if you search for Canyon City, Oregon, is the city I'm in.
Canyon City, Oregon.
The only club there.
Yep, Canyon City. Yeah.
Well, good luck. You're going to grow.
Yep.
And if you ever make it down our way, let us know.
That's right, Jason. You were about to say the name of your club, and we stepped on you.
Cool.
It's the Eastern Oregon Society for the Advancement of the Zymergetic Arts.
Oh shit! What's the acronym?
I don't know. I have to come up with one.
Okay. When you have a club with a long name, there's a slightly humorous, slant to the acronym. But yeah, you need to work on the acronym now.
I don't know. I'm an engineer. Long word.
Okay, well, that makes total sense. Now don't do anything with it. Keep it long.
Brew this one again, and yeah, send it back to us when you've repaired it, please. Love
Yeah.
to taste it again.
All right, Jason, we'll let you go, man.
Yep.
Thanks,
Thanks,
dude.
guys.
Thanks, man.
Later.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. One last break. We're going to wrap it up here on Dr. Homebrew. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, thanks for sticking around, everyone. We have done it. We have drank in some non-alcoholic beers. We drank some alcoholic beers, some very alcoholic beers, some beer, actually, that was too alcoholic for what it was supposed to be in the first place. But that's okay. We're homebrewers. We fuck up.
Yeah. And if you fuck up your homebrew, please contact Brian at thebrewingnetwork.com and send it in to us. We'll put it on the table. We'll give it a fair shake, and we'll try to help you remedy that situation.
Yes.
Or if you have a beer that you're trying to dial in on the other side, and you keep getting 47s and you really just want to get to that 49, send that one to us too, please.
Yeah. We'll be sure to invite Jamil back for that one.
There you go.
Help my beers.
You mean Brian?
Yes. Oh shit. Now you're Brian. Oh man. Now it's the Council of Brians. I feel left out. Yeah. If you're too good of a homebrewer, let us know and we'll help you. Calm down a little bit on that.
If you
Drink
want
your
that
beer.
coveted 17, you've never gotten the 17, we can teach you how to get down to the 7, maybe even get the 13.
Yeah. The
The
gentleman.
lowest courtesy score you're going to get. We can help you get there. Just let us know.
Yeah. Jamil, I wish we had more time, man, because I do want to talk to you about your trip to England. You went to England recently, and but I suppose we'll have to wait for your next episode of Brew Strong for all those details.
That, or you could have me back. Who knows?
Invite us on your shows. Yeah.
There you go.
Brian, maybe Brian's been on it, but yeah, I'd love to come on there sometime.
Hey, why not, man? All right, we are going to get out of here, everybody. Thank you very much. If you are listening live, give us a couple of minutes. We have another show coming at you. We have a mead and something else. I don't even know what we have coming up here, but we have a couple homebrews to cruise through. So thank you very much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And until next time, we'll see you guys later.